She gave birth in a coma, another did it alone in the wild with a pocket knife, and one baby was born twice. These are the most extreme childbirths ever. This story sounds like something straight out of a survival thriller, but it actually happened. In 2003, 35-year-old Amber Miller went on what she thought would be a peaceful solo hike through a remote area of Utah. She was pregnant, yes, but she didn't think the baby would arrive that day. The plan was to hike a little, take in the view, and return home, but nature had other plans. Out in the middle of nowhere, miles from the nearest road, Amber suddenly went into labor. No phone signal, no hospital, no people, just trees, rocks, and silence. And yet somehow, she didn't panic. With no one around to help and contractions coming fast, she found a flat patch of ground, got herself into position, and delivered her baby completely on her own. No doctors, no nurses, no warm towels, just instinct, courage, and pure adrenaline. And here's the part that will leave you speechless. After delivering the baby, Amber used her shoelace to tie the umbilical cord. Then she took out her pocket knife and cut it. This wasn't a decision made out of bravery, it was a necessity. She wrapped her baby in a jacket, held it close, and hiked for hours to find help. When rescuers finally reached her after a passerby spotted her waving for help near a trailhead, they were stunned. Not just because both mother and baby were safe, but because she had done something most people wouldn't believe possible. It's the kind of real-life survival that Hollywood dreams of. And yes, this story got picked up by media all over the country, but it still remains one of the wildest real childbirths ever recorded. If you think that's intense, just wait until we get to the baby who was born twice. No, seriously. That's coming up soon, but first you'll hear not less interesting stories. Let's rewind to the 1800s, before modern medicine, before ultrasound scans, before prenatal vitamins. In 1879 in Seville, Ohio, a woman named Anna Bates gave birth to a baby that still holds the world record today. This newborn weighed a staggering 22 pounds and measured over 28 inches long. That's not a typo, a full 22 pounds. For comparison, the average newborn weighs just around 7 pounds. This baby was basically the size of a 6-month-old at birth. Anna herself was no ordinary woman. She stood over 7 feet tall and had married Martin Van Buren Bates, also a giant. The two were often exhibited in giant couple shows across North America and Europe, but no one expected their child to be this enormous. Sadly, the baby only lived for a few hours, but doctors at the time documented the birth with complete astonishment. The story became legendary because of just how unheard of it was. Even now, with all our medical advancements, no baby has ever come close to beating that record. It remains one of the most jaw-dropping childbirths in history, and it all happened in a small farmhouse long before the world had ever heard the term Guinness World Record. Now let's jump to something that sounds impossible, but happened in our time. In 2017, a baby girl named Vanellope Hope Wilkins was born in the UK with one of the rarest conditions ever recorded, ectopia cordis. That means her heart developed outside her chest. No ribcage, no protection, just her heart beating in open air, visible from the outside. Doctors spotted the condition during an early scan and expected the worst. In almost every known case, the condition had been fatal. But Vanellope changed that. A team of more than 50 medical professionals prepared for months to perform what was basically a miracle. She was delivered via C-section, and within minutes underwent surgery to place her heart back inside her chest cavity. Not once, not twice, but 3 separate surgeries, each one more delicate than the last. They used tissue grafts and artificial rib support to cover her heart. And somehow, against all odds, she survived. She went on to breathe, eat, grow, and live outside the hospital. Today, Vanellope is living proof that even the most extreme beginnings can turn into stories of resilience. You think that's unbelievable? Wait until you hear about the woman who gave birth to 8 babies in one go, and they all lived. You've probably heard of twins, triplets? Sure, even quadruplets are rare but not unheard of, but 8 babies at once and all of them surviving? That's not science fiction, that's Nadia Suleiman's real-life delivery in 2009. She was instantly dubbed Octomom by the media, and her story exploded across the world. Nadia already had 6 children before this, and the moment doctors delivered her octuplets via C-section in California, headlines erupted. No one had ever seen anything like it. What made this so shocking wasn't just the number of babies, it was that every single one survived. The odds of that are incredibly low. Most higher-order multiple births come with serious risks, and survival for all 8? Practically unheard of. Each baby weighed between 1.8 and 3.5 pounds at birth, and the delivery room was like a military operation. 46 medical staff, neonatal teams on standby, and a carefully orchestrated timeline that left zero room for error. The babies were delivered within 5 minutes. Nadia's case sparked debates, documentaries, and endless interviews, but medically speaking, it was groundbreaking. The octuplets, all born prematurely, required weeks of intense neonatal care but eventually went home. Today they're growing up as one of the most talked about sibling groups in modern history. If you thought 8 babies was too much for one womb, just wait. Up next is a case so extreme a baby had to be taken out of the mother's body, operated on, and then put back inside. Yes, this really happened. In 2016, doctors in Texas pulled off one of the most incredible medical procedures ever attempted. Margaret Bomer went in for a routine checkup when doctors discovered something alarming. Her unborn daughter, Lindley, had a massive tumor growing from her tailbone. It was called a sacrococcygeal teratoma, and it was stealing blood flow from the baby's heart. If left untreated, it could have ended the pregnancy. But instead of waiting, doctors offered a mind-blowing option: remove the fetus from the womb, operate, and place her back inside to finish developing. Basically, Lindley was about to be born twice. At just 23 weeks gestation, surgeons made an incision in Margaret's uterus, brought out as much of the baby's body as needed, her tiny legs dangling outside while her upper body stayed inside the womb, and spent hours carefully removing the tumor. Her heart actually stopped briefly during the operation, but doctors stabilized her, completed the surgery, and then put her back in. They closed the womb, let the pregnancy continue, and 12 weeks later, Lindley was delivered for the second time. This time for good. She came out healthy and strong as if nothing had ever happened. The idea of being born once is already a miracle. Being born twice? That's the kind of thing you'd expect in a sci-fi movie. And yet, it's real. What's also real is the baby who weighed less than a can of soda, and still survived. That's next. Now let's talk about a birth that shattered everything we thought we knew about human survival. In 2020, a baby named Curtis Zy Keith Means was born in Alabama at just 21 weeks and 1 day gestation. That's 4 full months early. To put it into perspective, a typical pregnancy lasts around 40 weeks. Curtis came into the world weighing less than a pound, just around 14 ounces. Doctors didn't expect him to make it through the night. In fact, they gave him a 0% chance of survival. But he had other plans. From day one, Curtis fought. He spent nearly 9 months in the neonatal intensive care unit, hooked up to machines that monitored every heartbeat and breath. His skin was translucent, his eyes hadn't fully opened, but slowly, one impossible milestone after another, he pulled through. Nurses described his progress as nothing short of unbelievable. Even the medical staff admitted they'd never seen anything like it. The Guinness World Records officially recognized him as the most premature baby ever to survive. And here's the craziest part: he didn't just survive, he thrived. Curtis eventually left the hospital with no major complications, a healthy appetite, and a future full of possibilities. No one expected that this tiny baby, born smaller than most dolls, would become a symbol of resilience and medical progress. In California, 2014, something happened that doctors still talk about today. Melissa Carlton, a 39-year-old woman, was about to become a mom when a benign brain tumor triggered sudden complications. The pressure on her brain sent her into a deep coma, just weeks before her due date. Her condition was serious, and even though she was unresponsive, her baby was still developing normally. The medical team faced a unique challenge: deliver the baby safely while Melissa remained unconscious. At 33 weeks, doctors performed a cesarean section and Melissa gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Her family was overjoyed and heartbroken all at once. The newborn cried, breathed, and held on. But Melissa didn't wake up. She missed the first days of her son's life. Nurses placed him beside her, hoping something might trigger a response. And then, weeks later, something remarkable happened. As her baby lay near her, Melissa reached out, not a full movement but enough to make the doctors pause. Slowly, she began to emerge from the coma. It wasn't like the movies. There was no dramatic gasp or flood of words, but day by day she started to return. She eventually opened her eyes and made the connection. Her son was already here, and she had brought him into the world without ever realizing it. This wasn't a miracle in the fantasy sense, it was real, quiet, and medically stunning. This is the kind of story that sounds completely made up, except it isn't. In 1939, a 5-year-old girl from a small village in Peru stunned the entire world. Her name was Lena Medina, and she became the youngest confirmed mother in medical history. That's right, she was just 5 years old when she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Even now, decades later, no one has broken that record. At first, her parents thought Lena had a tumor. Her abdomen had started to swell, and they were worried something serious was happening. But after a series of tests at a hospital in Lima, doctors gave them a diagnosis no one was prepared for. She was 7 months pregnant. The medical team was baffled. It turned out Lena had a rare condition called precocious puberty, where the body starts developing adult features at a very young age. It's rare, but it can happen. Still, a full pregnancy at that age? That was something no one had ever seen before. The baby, named Gerardo, was delivered by cesarean section and weighed around 6 pounds. Lena's case made headlines across the globe, and doctors documented every detail. But her family kept the media at a distance, and Lena herself stayed quiet about it for most of her life. What makes this story so jaw-dropping is that it's 100% verified. Medical journals, photographs, and doctors from the time all confirm it actually happened. It's one of the most unbelievable moments in the history of childbirth, and somehow it's completely real. Doctors had seen strange ultrasounds before, but nothing like this. When a young woman came in with stomach pain, no one suspected she was pregnant, until the scan revealed something truly bizarre. The shape in the image didn't match anything they were trained to recognize. It looked inhuman. Tests showed the baby was completely healthy, but the ultrasound sparked panic. As it turned out, the position and shadows had created a shocking illusion. The birth went smoothly, but that scan still gives people chills. Most pregnancies last around 280 days. A little longer? Sure, but 375 days? That's more than 12 months, an entire year, and then some. It sounds impossible, yet it's exactly what happened to Beulah Hunter, a 25-year-old woman in Los Angeles in 1945. Her case was carefully documented by doctors at the time and is still considered the longest reliably recorded pregnancy in history. When she finally gave birth to her daughter Penny, the baby was perfectly healthy, normal weight, normal size. Nothing about the baby seemed unusual. Everything about the pregnancy, however, did. Doctors were baffled. Beulah insisted she hadn't miscalculated. The timeline was confirmed, and medical records backed her up. Throughout her pregnancy, she was monitored and examined by physicians who watched her case unfold week after week with growing disbelief. Some tried to explain it away as a mistake in dates, but the clinical records were solid. Her story challenged the textbook definition of full term and pushed the limits of what we thought a human body could do. It became one of those cases passed around in medical circles for decades. Most pregnancies can be predicted almost to the day. Beulah's threw the calendar out the window, and while her case was rare, it opened the door to all kinds of questions about gestation and biology. At first, doctors didn't think she'd make it through the night. Born at just 23 weeks and 3 days, baby Sabi arrived weighing only 8.6 ounces. That's lighter than a soda can. Her entire body could fit in the palm of a hand. She was so small her skin was nearly translucent and her tiny head was barely bigger than a ping pong ball. But against every expectation, she survived. And not just survived, thrived. Sabi was delivered at Sharp Mary Birch Hospital in San Diego, one of the top neonatal centers in the country. Her mother had developed serious complications and was rushed in for an emergency C-section. No one thought a baby that premature could possibly make it. But Sabi had other plans. She spent nearly 5 months in the neonatal intensive care unit, surrounded by nurses who called her our miracle girl. She needed oxygen, feeding tubes, and round-the-clock care. But day by day, she grew stronger. By the time she was discharged, she weighed over 5 pounds and was breathing on her own. The hospital even made her a tiny graduation cap. Sabi is officially the smallest surviving baby ever recorded. Her story stunned the medical world and offered hope to thousands of families. Sometimes, the tiniest ones are the toughest. And just when you think things can't get any more extreme, there's the case of a mother who gave birth on a commercial flight, cruising 35,000 feet in the air. One minute you're flying over the ocean, the next you're helping deliver a baby at 35,000 feet. That's exactly what happened aboard a Jet Airways flight in 2017. A woman from India, flying from Dammam to Kochi, suddenly went into labor mid-flight. There was no warning, no doctor on board, just a handful of passengers, some crew, and the steady hum of the engines. Flight attendants immediately asked if anyone on board had medical experience. Thankfully, a trained nurse stood up. Within moments, the back row of the plane turned into an improvised delivery room. Blankets were brought out, passengers were moved, and the cabin crew jumped into action. It was intense, fast, and completely unscripted, but it worked. The baby, a boy, was born healthy and crying mid-air. The pilots decided to divert and land in Mumbai, where medical staff were waiting. Both mom and baby were stable, and the story went viral within hours. The best part? Jet Airways later announced the baby would receive free air travel for life, a skyborne perk that no one else on that flight could claim. It's one thing to say your child was born in a hospital. It's something else entirely when their birth certificate lists in-flight as the location. Most people think of motherhood as something for the young, but in 2019, Aramati Mangayama from India changed that belief forever. At 74 years old, she became the oldest woman in the world to give birth. And not just to one baby, she had twins. This wasn't a story about last-minute surprises either. Aramati and her 82-year-old husband had wanted children for decades, and after years of trying without success, they turned to advanced fertility treatments. What followed was one of the most talked-about pregnancies in the world. Doctors were understandably cautious. At her age, even basic procedures carried serious risks. But to everyone's shock, the pregnancy went ahead smoothly. She carried the twins for 36 weeks before delivering 2 healthy baby girls via cesarean section. It was a global headline moment, not just because of her age but because of how calmly and quietly she handled the whole experience. Media crews camped outside the hospital, journalists from around the world rushed in, but she simply smiled and held her newborns like it was the most natural thing ever. Aramati didn't just break a record. She sparked debates and admiration everywhere. Was it controversial? Sure, but also undeniably fascinating. And while most new parents are in their 20s or 30s, she was getting ready to raise twins in her 70s. This sounds like a legend, but it's actually recorded in Russian historical archives. In the 1700s, a peasant woman from Shuya, Russia reportedly gave birth to an astonishing 69 children. Her name is lost to history, but records identify her as the first wife of Fyodor Vasilyev, a farmer. According to data sent to Moscow in 1782, she had 27 pregnancies. 16 sets of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets. Let that sink in. No single births at all. Every time she was pregnant, it was multiples. It's hard to believe even now, but the reports were verified by local officials of the time and cited in multiple documents, including in 19th century British publications like The Gentleman's Magazine. What's even more mind-blowing is that most of the children reportedly survived infancy, which, for that era, was nearly unheard of. The logistics alone are baffling. How did one woman raise dozens of kids in a rural Russian village, centuries before modern medicine, plumbing, or even electricity? No photos, of course. This was the 1700s. But the case has become one of the most extreme examples of human fertility ever documented. Whether you take the number as exact or slightly exaggerated, the sheer scale is impossible to ignore. Just picture a dinner table for 70 every night, and yet, somehow, this happened. It's one of those stories people hear and immediately say, how is that even possible? But it happened. Clara Dolan, a 22-year-old woman from London, genuinely had no idea she was pregnant until the moment she went into labor. No bump, no morning sickness, no missed periods. She went about her daily life, took her birth control, and even started her first day at a new job the same morning everything changed. After feeling sudden and intense abdominal pain, Clara returned home thinking it was stomach cramps or possibly something food-related. But within hours, the pain intensified. She eventually called for help, and by the time paramedics arrived, she was already in labor. In a complete daze, she was rushed to the hospital, and soon after gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Her reaction? Total disbelief. She hadn't prepared, hadn't expected, hadn't even considered the possibility. Doctors confirmed it was a rare case of cryptic pregnancy, a condition where all the usual signs go unnoticed. It happens more often than you'd think. Thousands of cases are reported globally each year. But Clara's was particularly shocking because of how far along she was without the slightest clue. One moment she was at work, the next, holding a newborn. Born into a world already full of complications, Mariam and Ndaya were fighting odds from the very first breath. These conjoined twin girls were born in 2016 in Senegal, one of the world's poorest regions, and their arrival came at a time of deep political and economic instability in the country. Their condition alone, joined at the abdomen and sharing vital organs, was rare and dangerous. but the fact that they were born in a place with limited access to high-level medical care made their survival seem almost impossible. And yet, their story became one of the most inspiring medical journeys of our time. At birth, doctors quickly realized that the local hospitals couldn't provide the complex care the twins needed. Their father, Ibrahima, made the heart-wrenching decision to seek help abroad. It was a long and uncertain process, but eventually, they were flown to the UK, where Great Ormond Street Hospital took them in. There, a team of specialists began working to understand the exact details of the girl's anatomy. The scans revealed a harsh truth. The girls shared too many vital structures for a safe separation. Surgery, which many had hoped for, was ruled out. The risk was simply too high. One or both of the girls might not survive. But instead of giving up, the hospital and Ibrahima committed to giving the twins the best life possible, together. What followed was a beautiful, if unconventional, childhood filled with laughter, music, and movement. The girls were given individual physical therapy, education, and daily routines that helped them build their own unique personalities despite being physically connected. Their smiles became instantly recognizable across the hospital's walls and eventually far beyond. Their story captured attention worldwide, not for being sad, but for being defiantly hopeful. Against the backdrop of war, poverty, and medical uncertainty, Mariam and Ndeye showed that joy, determination, and love could still shine through. They weren't separated, but they were never treated as incomplete. And that in itself might be the most powerful outcome of all. That's about it. Which story impressed you the most? Write in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.